Today here in the studio, we're shooting some scenes for a music video, and we're going to use MkII's new Andromeda 2 Series RGB tube lights to help light the scene. Let's check it out. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlightstudio, and today we're shooting a bunch of scenes for a music video that we're working on, and we're going to shoot it in a couple of different locations here in the studio. And we're going to start in Featherlight's isolation booth. And as you can see, this is pretty cramped quarters to be shooting a video in. We're gonna take everything out of the room, and we're gonna bring in a bunch of bass cabinets and a performer, and then we're gonna light that scene. In addition, we're gonna have some special effects lighting. And these are really flexible, and this gives us lots of creative options that larger tube style lights wouldn't really give us, because we can put these in a lot of places they won't fit. Now, MkII sent us a couple of these units for review under the stipulation that they have no input on the video whatsoever, and they're not paying us to do it, so we get to give our own unbiased review on how these lights actually are to work with in a real set and under demanding conditions like these.
The overall construction of the lights themselves is excellent. Heavy-duty metal construction on the chassis of the lights itself. They come packaged in a heavy-duty and padded nylon bag, which holds all of the accessories securely as well as protects them. And heavy-duty Velcro straps hold both the power cable and the power supply in place, in addition to the barn doors. These are very well made, all metal construction, and simply slide into the slots on the left and right side of the bulb. And they have a nice resistance to them, and once you adjust them into position, they stay put. And one of my favorite accessories by far is actually the included rubberized magnet with a 1/4-20 bolt on one side. These are heavy-duty magnets, more than enough to hold the light to any metal surface, and all the lights have 1/4-20 mounts on each end and on the back, making mounting options a lot more flexible. In addition to its internal battery options and the ability to be powered from AC mains, they can also be powered from a D-tap connector for super long run times. The Andromeda Mark II can be both full-color RGB and bicolor mode, and we found in bicolor mode that the color accuracy was quite good until you got down into the warmer temperatures. This is where the lamp starts to shift towards the magenta and red side of things. But thankfully, the lamp has green and magenta cast control adjustments that allow you to fine-tune your specific white balance. This is the RGN control that you see here at the bottom of the LCD. By adjusting that to the plus or minus is its magenta green shift control, and allows you to accommodate for that. You can also have control of most of the lamp's dedicated functions and scenes by using MkII's own dedicated remote control. The overall remote has a plastic old school feel to it, and the large ratcheting knobs feel cheap in the hand and are way too sensitive, but it does make a stable connection that we found reliable, and we're able to get to most of the functions of the lamp that we needed to. However, if you want access to all the lamp's creative features, you're going to want to use the freely downloadable app for Android and iOS. So here's the deal with the app. When we looked online and did some research, this seemed to be the one area where most people had the most amount of difficulty. And I think there's a reason why. In the manual, it states the default connectivity mode is actually Wi-Fi. But in our case, our lamps were in STA or router mode. And if you need to switch back to Wi-Fi, you need to press and hold the Wi-Fi button for 10 seconds, or so the manual says. But in our case, we discovered that you need to press and hold that button for almost 30 seconds to get the modes to actually change. So, long story short, press the Wi-Fi mode button a whole lot longer than you think you're going to need to get those modes to actually switch. Once you're in Wi-Fi mode, connecting up with the app is a lot easier to do. The next most common mistake is to not wait long enough to connect to the Wi-Fi network the lamps are actually broadcasting. This process takes almost a minute to complete. If you open the app and use the Wi-Fi search feature to find your Wi-Fi connection before this process completes, you'll get a red error circle over the Wi-Fi icon. Then you have to swipe left to delete the connection and then start the search for the Wi-Fi all over again. And it takes a bit longer the second time. So, long story short, wait the entire minute or so before you try to search for the Wi-Fi connection to connect your smartphone app. Once your phone sees the Wi-Fi connection, it shows up in the search icon. You simply have to tap it to make it active. From here, the app is pretty straightforward. If you back arrow, it takes you to the home screen where you can set up your different groups. If the lamps are on the same channel, then one group will control both lamps, or you can set them up individually. Tapping the function icon on the bottom tab takes you to all the color functions of the lamp, and there are many. The color tab gives you access to saturation and brightness, and simply moving your finger over the color palette gives you access to all the different ranges of colors, both super saturated to the more pastel colors, simply by moving your finger around the color area. Each one of the color functions comes with its own power button. This cycles the lamp on and off, and it's great when you're starting and stopping things like effects. Here in the color temperature function, we can easily change the overall brightness of all the connected lamps by sliding this to the left or the right. And if we slide our finger over the red needle above, we can change the overall Kelvin temperature of the lamps as well. This makes quick work of changing the color temperature of all of the Andromeda lights to the other lights in your shot. And the intensity slider directly below that gives you the ability to set the brightness conveniently and easily, as well as the power button below it. The do-it-yourself function is a fun one to play with, as this gives you complete control over each one of the LEDs. So in this particular case, we have complete control over the red one, or just the green ones, or just the blue ones. We can also get all the different hues by mixing and matching, and we can change the brightness here as well. And also we have that included power on and off button. Lots of fun and creative options here. The four-leaf clover function gives you access to all the different effects on the lamp, and there's a lot to play with, a ton of creative options here. We've got disco and lightning and TV and candle and bonfire and police. Over 30 different effects in total, a lot of different washes and different applications. This lightning effect here is a good example of an effect that needs to be turned on and off. We can do that easily by using the back arrow and going to the dimmer. The dimmer remembers the last effect, and we can start and stop it by simply hitting the power button here. In this first of our music video setups, we're going to be shooting against the back wall of the studio. In this first scene, we're going to have Mike bring in his guitars and pedal setups, and while he's rehearsing for the scene, that gives us a chance to set up the lighting for the shot. On the studio door here, we're going to put a 4-foot tube that's going to give us lightning effects. On the other side, opposite that, we're going to have the same thing, and we're going to put a 3-foot one on a stand to give us a key light. The first of our lights in our set goes on our studio door, which is made of steel, and that gives us a ton of mounting options. These super powerful magnets just stick right to the door, and then from here we can adjust the barn doors where we need them so they don't fire into the lens. Our next light in the shot is going to be our key light, and even though we're going to be keying a great deal of the color out of the video, we still need this for ambience as well as for exposure, and that's going to go on a tripod in the center of the room. And our last light in the scene is going to be opposite our studio door light. This is also going to give us some lightning and strobe effects, but since we don't have a door handy here, we're going to be using a tripod instead, and thankfully this has 1/4-20 mounts on both ends in addition to the back, giving us a ton of different mounting options to place these lights. As Mike rehearses his part, it gives us a chance to make some last-minute lighting changes as well as rehearse our camera movements before we go to the final shot. The included effects can cover a lot of ground, and some are very good, like the police color bars here. We can change the speed of the effect by tapping on the little running man here at the bottom from the slower to the faster icons. In this next scene, we need to set the stage and lighting for an outdoor nighttime shot that recreates the effect of a police patrol car pulling someone over. In this effect, we're using 3 different lights. We're using a shorter light on the interior of the dashboard of the car to light the subject. To create the patrol car effect, we're using one of the 4-foot bulbs on top of the truck behind it in its police color bar mode, and the final one is set to the right to create an overall ambient light for the scene. With the outside shots wrapped up, it's time to move on to our interior shots, and while Mike and Robin are rehearsing the parts for it, we're going to get started on setting up the inside isolation booth for this next scene. With a better understanding of how these tube lights work and all their features and functions, we're back inside the isolation booth setting up for our next scene, and we don't have a ton of space. So we're going to use the rubberized magnetic washers with the 1/4-20 bolts on them to help us hang this smaller light inside the door frame. It's a bit too wide to hang straight across, but we don't need it for that. We're going to use the rubberized magnetic washer on one side to hang to the hinge, and the other side will simply rest on the top. We'll put our other 4-foot RGB tube here in the corner, and since it's really too small to put a stand in here, since there'll be other stands here in the way with the camera, we're just going to lean it up into the corner here once it's set for the correct color. Once we're ready to shoot, we'll be using the lightning effect like we showed you before, and we'll be using the on-camera app to trigger it on and off. This can be handled off camera by one of the crew, and it makes easy work for adding these video strobe effects. And the last light we'll need is our ambience and color effects light, and because of the magnetic features in the back of these, we can attach it directly to our steel door here. This makes for a stable and secure connection that's better than any stand because you can't tip it over. From now, we just need to bring the bass cabinets in as well as the performer and get ready for our shoot. With our cabinets and our bass in the room, we've set a quick overhead color splash for the background, and our Andromeda 2 lights are covering all the foreground duties. We have our front special effects light that's going to be strobing. We also have an ambience light as well as our key light. Now in this video, we're going to be keying out a great deal of the color, so we're not so much worried about temperature. From here, Robin gets an opportunity to rehearse with some of his album tracks while we go over some last minute lighting changes and check our exposure, as well as our position and our camera movements and paths. When everything is comfortable, we're ready to begin the shoot.
So that's a quick look at CAME-TV's new Andromeda 2 style full RGB tube lights. And as you can see, there's a lot to like about these lights. The pros definitely outweigh the cons. If you're looking for a really flexible, low profile light with a ton of creative options, these lights should definitely be on your short list. Highly recommended. Hey, if you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help me make more videos just like this. Helps keep the channel going. Stay safe. Be creative. Add something creative to the world. It could really use it. We'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.